Ladies and gentlemen, Ted Cruz has announced he's running for president. And I got to tell you, I like what he's running on, repealing Obamacare and abolishing the Internal Revenue Service, which is in the single digits when it comes to its approval rating here in the United States. Very, very exciting. I know that Ted Cruz obviously isn't perfect. His wife worked at Goldman Sachs, but so did Nomi Prinz as a managing director. And then she's gone public and spoken out against it. And I know that she was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Well, there are about 10,000 members of that, and that's the globalists trying to organize all the smartest people in the country so they can control them. So if we ever discount someone because they've been part of the power structure, we have a very low probability of ever changing the culture. Ted Cruz has a pretty good voting record. When I say pretty good, he's hawkish on some issues. But other than that, he is what I'd call a constitutionalist/libertarian style. I would like to see he and Rand Paul team up. That's not happening. They're already starting to snipe at each other. Rand Paul is going to announce on April 6th. And I know Rand Paul a lot better than Ted Cruz. And I don't put all my eggs in one basket. I know the presidential election becomes a diversion to a certain extent. But there are a lot of people in the system who do not want to destroy the country. And I believe Ted Cruz and Rand Paul are part of that. So I want to open the phones up early in the hour. What do you think of Ted Cruz's announcement? We're going to play it. We're going to get into it. He calls for a new generation of conservatives, kicks off campaign at world's largest Christian university, releases his first ad in Spanish, which is an excellent idea, because you just have the socialists and the globalists out there with the giant immigrant population that's mainly Latin American, letting them literally brainwash them. And so the answer is convert folks over to libertarian-based ideas. Plus, much of Latin America is hungry for freedom. Much of Latin America does not want to live under tyranny. And, of course, Ted Cruz's father was a big opponent of Castro, and so they have a lot of lessons there of not wanting to be underneath that type of tyranny. But I don't think Ted Cruz is a man on a white horse who will save us. I don't think Rand Paul is either. But I think both men are good people. I know Rand Paul for 20 years. I was one of the first people to ever interview Rand Paul. Back when we'd already got his dad on, and they had a big success having him on the show, and he was running for Congress in '96. And they said, the campaign said, hey, have Rand on. He's just now starting to do interviews. And so, that said, it's beyond Republican or Democrat at this point. If there were Democrats out there that weren't totally anti-gun, totally anti-family, totally anti-sovereignty, then I would be for them as well. Ted Cruz was against arming al-Qaeda in Syria. So was Rand Paul. I mean, when you compare them to a Hillary Clinton or a John Boehner or a Michelle Obama or a Michael Moore, it's night and day. Tell me if you disagree with that. 800-259-9231. First-time callers in the first hour. Then we'll have open phones for everybody in the second and third hour today. There is a lot of geopolitical news as well. You're welcome to continue the discussion from yesterday about the Army training documents, Special Operations Command, a joint forces drill in 8 states, listing Texas and Utah as hostile. Some say, oh, Fort Bragg's had drills outside the base for decades. Yeah, that's not this. This is practicing working with local police under NORTHCOM. It's an admitted mission to take over the country. So your PSYOP to condition us doesn't work, and it's not working on the troops either. We can talk about that, the missing nukes, 800-259-9231. Those 3 subjects. On the Ted Cruz announcement running for president in 2016. I want to be clear. I don't completely trust Ted Cruz. I don't completely trust anybody in D.C. because of the blackmail, the threats, the harassment. But he has a very good voting record. He stood up against arming al-Qaeda to attack Syria when no other so-called conservative leaders would do it but Rand Paul. He wants to abolish the IRS and has pledged to do so. And he wants to repeal Obamacare. We are not getting that out of anybody else but Rand Paul. Clearly, the true libertarian/constitutionalist conservatives that uphold basic American values are Senator Ted Cruz and Senator Rand Paul. That's it in the field. Not Huckabee, not any of them. Because some people think, oh, well, you know, Huckabee, he's the answer. Good guys out there like Chuck Norris and others. Now, again, Ted Cruz is slick. Ted Cruz is smart. Ted Cruz is from the establishment. But there's large elements of the establishment that want to be free market, that want to be wealthy, that want to be successful, that want America to not go the Cloward and Piven bankruptcy route into social engineering and socialism. So there's the choice. There is the Michael Moore, Nancy Pelosi, Cloward and Piven, Hillary Clinton, school lunch program, gulag on one end. And then there is the Rand Paul, Ted Cruz spectrum on the other. And I'm going to hate to see these two guys that are so close to each other on policies and whose bases are basically the same people destroy each other. And there's already some of that starting. Do I think Ted Cruz or Rand Paul will save America? No. But if we get this bad attitude that we're always going to lose, that we can never reform the country, that we can never have victories, people will not be energized. They will have a fatalist attitude and we'll lose everything. Even if Ted Cruz runs or Rand Paul runs, which they both are, obviously. Ted Cruz is now announced officially. Rand Paul's been already campaigning for years, good year and a half. They will energize a liberty movement and ideas at the state, county, and city level like Ron Paul did. Ted Cruz, Rand Paul and others now stand on the shoulders of not Ron Paul, who was just a focal point, but of the supporters of Ron Paul and the tens of millions of dollars that were given and the thousands of speeches and the TV ads and all of that created a focal point for opposition to the globalist paradigm to form. And so many people in the liberty movement are just sitting there getting guns and you know, prepping, getting ready for a collapse and just to take care of themselves. And you've got to do that maybe 30% of the time, in my view, while at the same time, 70% of the time being offensive in the info war to blame the globalists for our problems so that liberty and free market and capitalism doesn't get blamed. That's their plan. They exacerbate or create the crisis and then offer their solution: more kleptocratic, progressive social engineering, more wealth redistribution, more collectivism. So there's a battle intellectually over collectivism, totalitarianism, control freakism, and basic Americana Renaissance liberty that should unify conservative and liberal alike in the modern spectrum, because it's called freedom and it should be restored. It shouldn't be under attack. There is a battle, and we are inches away from removing Boehner. We are inches away from having a Tea Party, libertarian, constitutionalist takeover of the Republicans. I've been talking about this for a decade, but if you go back to the last few years, in leaked Democratic Party speeches to billionaire donors, when you start ferreting in and you start digging in deeper to all of this, and you start looking into the Republican leadership as well, they're all combining funds, they're all combining propaganda, they're all combining forces to try to stop a libertarian, constitutional-style movement taking over Congress and the states. Why do you think the Pentagon, seized by the globalists, the New World Order directed Pentagon, is openly turning into a federal occupation, global occupation force, and training to confiscate guns and training to take over the infrastructure, and now admitting it in the Army Times, Stars and Stripes, and everywhere else? because they are preparing to go operational if they need to, if the states get together in a coalition, recognize the federal government's been hijacked and is out of control, and try to reconstitute the republic. They're going to try to move in and block us. They are trying to sign the Trans-Pacific Partnership in secret right now. It's in CNBC, The Guardian, you name it. And all 33 sections are secret, except for one leaked by WikiLeaks, and that gives